Please note that today's meeting may be recorded. This recording will be broadcast on the authority's website and may be used for training purposes by the Democratic Services Department. All attendees will be in view of the camera, and by attending, you're consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings being used as outlined above. So, Prenanda, Croeso Cyfarfod, Diolch i chi gyda'r. Good afternoon and welcome to today's Neighbourhood Services Scrutiny and Planning Committee meeting of Monday, 20th of January 2025 at 4 p.m. Agenda item number 1, apologies for absence. John McCarthy has passed on his apologies, and I think everybody else is here. Agenda item number 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal or prejudicial interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government and Finance Act 1992 relating to council tax, the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and the Members' Code of Conduct. Are there any members who wish to make a declaration of interest? Councillor Geraint Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item number 3, I was the chair of the Cardiff Capital Regional Challenge Fund that approved the funding for the EV charging for Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council.
Thank you, Geraint. I think it'd be okay to speak to us. Yeah. Nobody else is indicating. Okay. Okay. Agenda item number 3, fleet update and planning report. Report author is Johan Van Tu, and it's being presented here today by the Cabinet Member David Jones. And questions, I believe, will be answered by Johan as well.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chair. As was noted from the previous report to scrutiny, we were granted the full amount applied for from the Welsh Government at £436,000. Our plan to install 22 EV chargers at Unit 5, 8 EV chargers in the underground car park at the Civic, and the charging infrastructure at Unit 20 are recognised as one of the most successful fleet decarbonisation projects by CCR and the Welsh Government Energy Service. Both organisations published a case study which has been shared with other organisations who are looking to set up similar projects. eVolt Charging was nominated for a Green Flag Award for the collaboration with MTCBC and was awarded the Best Collaboration with a Local Government Award in the UK for 2024. We currently have the charging infrastructure for 74 EVs at the same time, with monitoring directly to the supplier who would visit the site within 24 hours for any required maintenance. 5.2 and 5.3 outline the current EVs we operate and our ambition to replace many more in 2025, but also the financial and operational difficulties in doing so. Section 6. Current Welsh Government grants are to purchase EVs outright, though we hire 75% of our fleet, and we are currently exploring solutions to hire EVs at the same cost as diesel vehicles. Our ambition is to produce, store and power our own vehicles, and we are looking for realistic projects to provide this option. Finally, in Section 7, we are looking at new technologies such as solid-state batteries. We will arrange demos to check vehicles' operational suitability and look at options to replace diesel-fueled vehicles with EVs, even when grants are not available. That's all I've got to add to it. So if I've missed something, I could pass over to Johan to fill it in.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Johan. I'm going to go on to questions from members. And if we could, I think last week we got sorry, not last week, the last committee meeting, we got a little bit mixed up between questions and comments. So if we can stick with comments, we'll stick with questions and then we'll go on to comments, if that's okay. So I've got Councillor Paula Layton.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I got 2 questions, or 3, I think. When first looking at the electric vehicles, I believe that one of the positions mentioned was that the money would be saved because of the electric vehicles were cheaper to run. Is this still the case, or has that changed with the increase in electricity?
Pretty much balance at the same cost. Long term is a saving on maintenance, so you got to run them for at least 5 years. I looked at until you can save about 5 to 10% maybe on the same cost would be for a diesel vehicle.
Right.
Hopefully, if the energy, like electricity price, drops in the future, there will be a massive change in that. To put in perspective, we used to be 7 pence per kilowatt in a night tariff, and now it's gone to 26. So the increase is by 4 times. We used to save about 50%, then, but now we're hardly saving anything. And with the cost of electric vehicles being higher, we just balance, you know, no additional cost, but no savings.
Okay, thanks. Going on that now then, so what are the running cost differences between electric and diesel?
About 800 pounds a year on maintenance, and around 600 pounds per year on energy. So it's not extreme, but considering the cost of electric vehicle, they're about 30% more than diesel. So you got to run them for at least 5 years to take that 30% off before you reach the saving.
Lovely. Right, and on 6.2 it says our ambition is to produce, store and use our own energy to power our vehicles, and we are exploring all the opportunities for realistic projects that will offer this option. What are our options currently out there to produce our own energy? If there's any?
We're already doing that by having solar panels on roof of the buildings.
Right.
That powers the buildings at the moment. The way it's done is not the most cost effective. Like the energy gets exported back into the grid, we import it back. So, you know, we sell it back, I think is only about 3 or 4 pence per kilowatt. We import it back about, so to maximize that, we should take our own energy, the one we produce, store it, and then use it directly without the grid. Right. The whole surface we got on roofs is not sufficient for electric vehicles. Hardly takes, I think, a percentage of the building consumption. So a realistic plan would be to have a land somewhere, a few acres, covered in solar panels, then to have battery storage on sites, get that energy into the battery storage, and then use it directly into the vehicles. It's something for the future. I'm thinking around 2035, hopefully we'll be able, with new technology, to achieve something like that.
Right.
At the moment, in theory, yes, it's achievable. Cost-wise, it's not really effective because it'll cost extremely, you know, to invest there and what you're getting back.
Okay, thanks, Joanne. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Clive Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just really want some clarification, because if you look at 5.2, second sentence there, we are in a good position as the lease on approximately 60 vehicles under 3.5 tonne will end during 2025. Then you look at paragraph 6.1, and they say there we are currently higher around 75% of our fleet. So majority of our vehicles in authority are hired. There is a cost to that, is there not? I don't know what the cost of hiring a vehicle is per month or per year. But it says that grants are available from Welsh Government to change our fleet to electric vehicles and to purchase vehicles outright. So at the moment, we got hired vehicles which are on a lease. Am I right in saying we want to get to a stage where the majority of our vehicles are owned by us? No. So where is the savings that are going to come to us year on year? Because we are hiring vehicles, which I would presume, I don't know, over a 5-year period, are costlier than purchasing the vehicles outright. So can you explain to us quite clearly, this is the future, how we are going to save lots of money from now on?
Question about hiring vehicles. Most of the businesses in UK not only hire vehicles or lease them instead of buying them outright, because you to buy them outright, you got to invest a huge initial capital. We done it when we have grants because that was helpful. So we use grants to buy them outright. But we can't, if we could get grants for 100% of our fleet, it would be great. But unfortunately, I think we exhausted all those options.
So let me stop you there. That option is not there anymore.
It is, but it's costing us the full value of the vehicle. So let's say a department's got £20,000 per year budget for a fleet. They can hire 5 vehicles and use them 5 vehicles at a time for that year. If they use the 20,000 to purchase a vehicle, they will have only 1 vehicle, so that would make no sense. And that vehicle will be run for 5-6 years, and then it's going to go to auction. We're going to have very little value back. And on top of that, we'll have a running cost. When the vehicle is off-road as well, we're going to find replacements, which we're going to have to hire an additional cost. So if you look overall at the whole cost of hiring, it works out cheaper because all the maintenance is captured. And I'm going to put a question in this room. How many people buy outright vehicles brand new? I'll be very surprised if anybody does that because and you purchase them with cash or you lease them.
I don't lease them. Never
So you purchase them outright brand new.
Yes.
Very small percentage. I will say maybe 1% of the people, do that. Reason for that, obviously nobody can afford to, and you don't maximize your capital.
Mind you, I got the same vehicle and it's 11.5 years old.
Okay.
So that might answer your question.
So that's the usage of that vehicle is not as much as the vehicles used for work, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
If you use them for work and they're going to be, 7-8 hours on the road every day, they won't last more than 5 years. Or if they last, they're going to be in a very bad shape and you're going to invest a lot of money in it. When you hire them, all that cost is captured in a hiring contract. So you pay £3,000 per year, let's say, for a small van, and the cost of maintenance, like service, MOT, any repairs, anything like that is captured there. So you only pay accidental damage if it happens, if it's our fault, and tires if we damage them on pavement or picking up nails. So it's easier for departments to manage, and also if the vehicles break down, for example, if it goes in for MOT and it fails and is off-road for a month, you don't lose that time. The hiring company will send you a replacement. So it works out in our favor. We have less vehicles by renting than if we buy them.
Right.
The other reason why we don't buy them all, we are small. We've got a small fleet, 120, 140 vehicles. We can't afford to have our own workshop. If we could, if we have a big fleet like 400, 600 vehicles, yes, that would be cost effective to have our own workshop, pay a couple of mechanics to maintain our vehicles. But because it's not, we got to pay third party for any repairs. We get a little discount, but it's not going to be as cheap as doing it ourselves. So by renting, is the renting company problem to repair them at their own cost. We don't support that cost.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, over 5 years period, it's true that we pay maybe £15,000 for a vehicle that's worth 25, but then that's all the cost we have. And at the end of the 5 years, we have a brand new vehicle, and it didn't cost us more. We know.
Yeah.
Another thing is inflation. If we lease them or let's say finance them or anything like that, inflation might affect us on the cost of each year.
Yeah.
But if you have a contract hire for 5 years, the cost stays the same. Like we still got vehicles from 2021, which that are probably 30% cheaper than what we can buy now, if we have to.
So going forward, by the sound of long term, way into the 30s and even longer, it's more efficient and cheaper for this authority to be hiring vehicles.
Yeah, not just sort of like any other business. Yeah, it's proven. I can prove it. Piece of paper, some calculations.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for diesel vehicles, so it's not something new because of electric vehicles. We've been doing it for diesel vehicles for a number of years now. I think about 10 years.
Yeah. So if a vehicle that's hired breaks down, you've got an agreement that you can have a replacement. Within 24 hours?
48 hours normally. If they can't repair it in 48 hours, they'll send us a replacement and they'll pick it up.
One other question, Chair, go into the refuse recycling vehicles, because obviously they're much bigger vehicles. They're out on the road at least 5 days a week, sometimes longer when they're covering bank holidays, etc. They've tried am I right in reading somewhere that they've tried to utilize these as electric vehicles, but the experience of the drivers wasn't a good one? So is that still being looked at going forward, or are we going to stick with diesel?
We got 3 electric HGVs, 12.5 ton in waste. They're curbside collections, like the one with separate compartments.
Oh, yeah.
We've been using them since August, I believe, or September last year. I don't think that if I got the feedback from the drivers, the driver experience is not bad. The operator's experience is a bit different because they're a little bit slower to compact. So they're questioning the routes set done for diesel vehicles, which they move much faster. What we've seen on a diesel, well, the main worry we have with electric vehicles is, will they charge enough? Will the mileage be enough? Will they be powerful enough? And we test all that, and that works all right. But keeping them day to day in a run, we realize that the drivers take probably about 5-10% longer, the operators to fill them up and for the body to work compared to diesel. So going forward, we put a hold, so we're testing them. I mean, in the future, I'm hoping they're going to improve. At the moment, we're not going to replace
So
them.
you've got 3 of
Yeah.
those vehicles on hire.
Yeah, we bought them with grants.
Oh, you bought them?
Yeah.
Right. So are they fairly new? How long?
Yeah, since September last year.
Oh, right. So hopefully you should have those for a...
We've been using them for a few months now. Like I said, the driver experience is great. They actually prefer them. There's no noise
Yeah.
in a cabin. They're very smooth. They go the mileage. They come back, I think, well, they use about half the energy in the day. So that's no concern. The problem is the operators do complain that they'll be slower to load.
They're not as quick as the diesel.
To compress. So that's the only issue. Takes, I think the run they made for 7 hours and 20 minutes. They take an average about 20 minutes more per day.
Right.
To complete the run.
Okay.
I'm hoping that the operator is going to get used to them to operate them more efficiently in the future. And it's not the vehicle, it's just the fact that it's different way of doing things.
Yeah.
I might be wrong.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clive Jones. Councillor Geraint Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Johan, so there's not really much saving as far as, fuel costs are concerned. It's going to be a long time for that to bear fruit. So is it the reason why you're doing this is for decarbonisation purposes?
Yes, regarding of costing, we're still gonna reach our targets for 2030 and 2035. All the petrol and diesel vehicles, they're gonna be banned for sale, as far as I know. It's still there, 2035. The earlier we start, like I said, with 2-3 vehicles, the more we learn and the more smoother the transaction will be. The transition will be, I wouldn't like to wait until 2034 to start this transition, because then we're going to face a change of 140 vehicles overnight with no charging. So we got one thing right, which didn't cost us anything. Get enough power on sites and the charging infrastructure. Now we just got to choose the right vehicles, once they become more efficient. And I'm sure savings will come along. At the prices today for electricity and diesel is no saving. But that's not going to stay the same, as we know the prices, go up and down.
So second question I got is on the type of vehicles we use. We're using 120, 140 at the moment. Is there scope for us to use some smaller vehicles for parks, TAF trail, etc., some smaller, perhaps electric ATVs that would be better for the green emissions?
We got one diesel ATV at the moment, 2, sorry. We got a Honda, and they can be replaced with electric. That's not an option. From what I've seen in the last 5 years since I've been working here, all the operators request bigger vehicles, if anything. I wouldn't like to compromise what they can do, because then we're going to end up in a situation that you give an operator with a crew of 2 a smaller vehicle, and they're going to come doing half the work, saying, well, because you give me this vehicle, we can't do it. So the capacity of the vehicles got to stay the same, if not improve. I don't think that's a necessary solution all the time. Like, it might work in some cases, if the vehicles runs empty most of the time. So if a supervisor or a manager say, look, that crew hardly put anything in the vehicle, every time we wait it is like, a ton under, that's when we're looking at reducing the capacity. We do that with diesel vehicles anyway, so it won't be something new. But yeah, if an electric vehicle offer more capacity, that would be great. We look into that.
And my final question for you is, if you've got like a matrix or an equation where over a year, a certain vehicle does so many hours or does certain miles, if that vehicle's not clocking up those miles or hours, would you get rid of it?
It's not The way our organization work, in Fleet, I offer a service for all the departments. So it's the department manager, which has got his own budget. He's got to decide to get rid of it. So if street cleansing operate 6 vehicles for bin collection, and I can see 1 vehicle sitting in the car park all the time, I will question the manager any point, and the manager will have to decide that. But yeah, I will question all the time if I see on a tracker that the vehicle haven't moved for a week, for example, or 2 weeks. Normally they got a good explanation for it. It's either because somebody's sick, off sick for a couple of weeks, or unplanned absence or something like that. I don't believe we got any vehicles that did not utilize, regularly. But if anybody suggests anybody can, report anybody that they've seen, I'm sure I can look into the tractor and investigate.
Thank you, Chair. You.
Thank you, Geraint. Councillor Bill Smith.
Hey, can you tell me how many depots we haven't got any e-charging places now?
How many I don't have?
Yeah.
Parks, the
Parks.
Castle. Reason for that is we don't know if the vehicle will stay there.
Right.
They might move to Unit 20. Some I know Mark is working in some projects there.
Oh,
So there's no charging in Cafarta. The home collection in Dulai's got it. They got 2 Civic now, Unit 5 and Unit 20. We all got it. And the health center, they don't have it either.
What about the tractors that left up the park? Are they going to be, because they're going to be electric, are we going to look into that to have a change?
I did look into it, but there are no tractors that they're good enough electric at the moment on the market.
Right.
We got 2 telehandlers in home recycling side, and they're not nearly as good as the diesel one. The tractors, they're very because the tractors they use a lot of lifting,
Right.
and they got to lift about up to 2 tons sometimes.
Not enough power.
The electric ones, they can only lift by 600 kilograms, so they're not going to be powerful enough. Even if they do the mileage and the drive is great, they won't be able to operate as good as a diesel at the moment.
Good.
So in the future, I'm hoping some different technology is going to improve. We still got 10 years since 2035 until then.
So also you want to change out to the solid batteries? What's the cost of that then to affect what we're trying to do now?
At the moment, they're not even on the market yet. They can
Oh,
launch them
right, fair
in
enough.
2028. They're hoping to be operational. That will offer a greater power, greater storage of energy, and quicker charging. But yeah, until they're going to be available, I wouldn't say that we're ready to replace the tractors yet.
So the solid batteries, like the question asked, what's roughly the cost roughly they would be? Would it be expensive because then we got a budget for it?
Yeah, they would be more expensive. I'm hoping there will still be grants available because we've seen that every time a new technology come on the market and the price was different than diesel, Welsh Government and Energy Service, they did help with grants to cover the difference. So again, our budget won't be affected.
Okay, thank you. All other questions have been asked earlier on, so I'll get it down as much as I can. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bill Smith. Councillor David Hughes.
I've got 2 questions, Chair. First question is something similar to what Clive asked. You did answer it about the maintenance, the cost of the electric vehicle, why we're hiring them and not buying them, why we buying them and not hiring them, or the other way around. What is, with electric vehicles, obviously is there less charge on maintenance?
It is less.
Is it a lot less, or is it?
We spend on electric vehicle, the Nissan ZNV200, which we had since 2021, about £150 per year on maintenance. That's how much a service cost, and the MOT is £40, 110. Where a similar van from 2021 will cost about £600 to £800, a full service, full MOT. So yeah, it's a little bit of saving, about £500-600 per year.
Yeah, so that's how you calculate it.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
better. Lovely, thanks. 3.1 then on your on the paper. It talks about previous report detailed progress made in January 2024 and the plans to expand the EV infrastructure, which you can see downstairs in Unit Civic Centre. Also to make full use of infrastructure to offer staff access to our car parks, opportunity to use EV chargers for the personal vehicle. Now I know the ex-chief exec, just the previous chief executive, used to have a charger downstairs. Do you know if we're going to allow the staff to use the chargers? Will we put a cost on that?
Yes, I've been in communication with the energy department, and we put all the costs together and the property as well. It's not just the cost of kilowatt we're paying to the energy supplier, it's the standing charge, and also is some software he's using. So the cost will be around 50 pence per kilowatt. That's how we just break even. We'll cover all the costs, transaction included, so that will be all the cost. Not all the staff will have access in underground. There's only going to be the staff with permits. So I'm still working on a communication with Sean Thomas. I have a CNT meeting last week, and everybody agreed, as long as we get the communication right so everybody can understand who can use them, we'll send it out. It's a very simple process, but you know, pretty much you just go online, apply for a RFID card, or you set up an account to a bank account, then you just get charged for what you use. But yeah, it'll be around 50 pence per kilowatt. It won't be free.
I come a comment after. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor David Hughes. Mr. Phil Starr.
You want to just going to ask you to look into your crystal ball a little bit here at the moment. You referred to in some of your previous comments about the fact that the technology is changing quickly. How quickly is it changing technology with regard to electric vehicles?
I'm not going to look in my crystal ball. I'm going to look in the past. So
Okay.
2021 or 22, I think some of the councillors present here, we have chat about electric vehicles, and apart from Tesla and the Nissan Leaf, there wasn't much choice. And if you look on the streets now, I think it's not one manufacturer in the world that it doesn't produce at least one model of electric vehicles. Also looking at the prices, I think in 2020, the only vehicles available on the market were Tesla, which they cost around £60,000, and the Nissan Leaf around £40,000. Well, if you go Pentoback Road, you'll see that old Vauxhall, they sell it for £23,000. So the technology is moving extremely quick. That's only the last 5 years.
Yeah.
I think in the next 5 years will be at least the same changes. And if you look at our organization, in 2021, we didn't have anything electric. We didn't have any chargers. We didn't have any power on site looking into that. So we come quite long way in 4 years. I think we'll do the same in the next 4 years.
So the rate of progress hopefully will be as quick, if
As
not
quick
quicker,
as it was, if not quicker, yes.
that you've done in the last 4 years. Okay,
That's correct.
thanks. And just a
Also,
couple, just
also the quality of the technology, like in 2021, most of the electric vans you could buy, like Nissan ENV200, they were around 120, 140 miles range. Well, this year we can buy over 200 miles range, you know, pretty much most of the manufacturers do it.
Can you see that any future developments in this particular area which we are going to have to invest in, can you see that the grant money which we've been able to utilize up to this point will continue?
The grant money was great up until this point, because the difference from electric vehicle to diesel was great. A diesel vehicle was £20,000 and electric was 50,000. So you could get a 30,000 difference, you know, from a grant. But if you look at this year now, I think I looked at Toyota Pro Ace, the difference was only £6,000 between them. So it's not a great saving there. And I look at Vauxhall, they come with the first vehicle that will be the same for diesel, petrol, electric and hybrid, will be the same price, 23,000. So even if you get a grant, you won't be any value to us anymore.
No.
So that's why I'm looking to hire vehicles now, like what we do. But to hire vehicles at the same price is a challenge, because at the moment they're still more expensive. Reason for that is the hiring company, they buy them without grants, they pay full price for them, and then they got to recover the money from the rent, which is coming more costly to us.
Yeah.
I'm looking for companies to provide the same cost for diesel and electric, which they do for sale, which I'm guessing in the next 12 to 24 months will be available.
So you're positive and you're optimistic that we're well on track to be able to, you know, to meet the targets by, I think they did, is what, 2035, is that it?
Yeah, we can meet the
Yeah.
targets within 2 years if we want to spend the money.
Great.
But I'm looking to meet the targets without spending additional money.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
challenge we
yeah.
got, and that's the target we keep in mind.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Phil. Councillor Clive Jones.
Yes, Chair, thanks. Can I examine a bit more about the vehicles in housed up at Cyfarthfa Park? Because unless it's changed dramatically overnight, I always thought there were quite a few vehicles that are parked there. What you're saying is there may be a change and they will be move these somewhere else. How far do they have to go now to if whatever vehicles they've got, if they need to be charged, what's the nearest place they go to?
At the moment, they got no electric vehicles in Cyfarthfa, but if they will have to go to Unit 5 or Unit 20. So they won't have to go extremely far,
So-
like 4 miles down the road.
How many vehicles are housed up there at the moment?
18 vehicles less than 3.5 ton and 3 tractors.
So
And
that's
then they got a few mowers, which I don't think they're going to be electric anytime soon.
right. So you've got at least 21 vehicles up there. So sooner or later, somebody's got to make a decision as to what they're going to do. I mean, I would have thought that some of those vehicles, because Cyfarthfa Park is the largest park in the county borough, if it's remaining there, somebody's got to make a decision sooner rather than later to put some charging points there. So who's that decision being left with to decide when and where?
I've been deciding where to put the chargers, like strategically we keep the vehicles, but I wouldn't like to spend the money on putting chargers there and then within a year to move
No.
the vehicles elsewhere.
No.
So once the park department decide, look, we're gonna definitely keep these vehicles here permanent, I can look to get a grant to install the chargers
Right.
and increase the power if needed.
So obtaining the grant is not an issue.
It's been available for the last 3 years, and we got them for the other sites. I can't see an issue not getting them again.
So going back to the point that's been made about planning for the future. So again, sometime, I mean, I don't quite know because nobody has said at the UK government what happens in 2035, and I don't know, 40% of the public have said, no, I'm not paying an exorbitant amount for a electric car. I stick with my diesel, which I've had for 10 to 12 years. So, but at some, I understand what you're saying about saving money and not doing it now. But if every local authority was going to leave it until, I don't know, 2033, there'd be, one hell of a mad rush all over the country doing purchasing vehicles, etc. So have you got a tapered plan to deal with this within the next 9 to 10 years?
Yeah, we are going to change a proportion of the vehicles. Like in the next 12 months, I'm looking to replace all the small vans. We've got about 15 of them.
Right.
And it's no issue not replacing those because they got a long range now. They got over 200 miles range, and they can charge in either Unit 5, either Unit 20. To put in perspective, 200 miles range means about 3 to 4 days of operation. So
Right.
that driver doesn't have to be based in a place. They can charge every other day or twice a week pretty much. They'll give him 400 miles. That's more than enough for a full week of operation. So those vehicles can be replaced now. I've been participating on a project financed by CCR. It's called Infuse in Cardiff. My challenge was how to hire vehicles at no additional cost, these electric vehicles at no additional cost compared to diesel. I identify a company in Cardiff, so it's a local company called Land Lease, I believe. And I ordered the first vehicle from them because they said they can provide all 15 at 53% discount on hire, which is great for us because it actually works out same price as a diesel. And then we can take advantage of the savings on electric vehicles on cost, running cost. I'm hoping the project's going to work and we're going to have the first vehicle from them next month, and then every other month I'm going to increase the number to 3-5 vehicles then, and hopefully within the next 6 months we'll replace. So we're still replacing vehicles. We're just not going to replace vehicles that they will complicate the operational part of the. So I won't try to replace the tractors or HGVs in waste because we've done that and we realized that okay, maybe it's not the best time. We got a way to get better. So we're gonna start with small vehicles and we increase to bigger as the technology improves as well.
Okay. One other question, Chair. Can you explain to me the efficiency of these charging points? Because Thomas is my middle name, and somebody will have to convince me and give me all the evidence, because I've been considering purchasing an electric vehicle, but I'm not going to go out and pay the exorbitant prices that they could. Ultimately, they're going to come down. Then the added question is, where are all these charging points? Are there over the 200 miles? Are there thousands of them, or are they spread out? Somebody I know quite well, they got these charging points in hotel grounds and so on. And he wanted to charge the vehicle, but he needed to be somewhere quite quickly, whenever it was the following morning. And this charging point was taking half the day, so he couldn't get to where he was supposed to be. So there's a variance in the efficiency of these charging points, is that correct?
It is correct, yes. So the chargers will charge at different speeds. Not all the vehicles will take the maximum speed on the charger. So you can have speed vary from 7 kilowatts, 22 for standard chargers. Those who charge normal vehicles within 6 to 12 hours, depends on the power of the vehicle. So they're not the most rapid chargers. That's what people got at home normally. So they charge overnight.
Right.
That's what we got in most of our sites. So the vehicles will charge 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, the operators finish, we'll plug it in, next morning is fully charged. Also in Unit 20, we got ultra rapid chargers, which they charge at 150 kilowatts power the vehicle, so they will charge between 30 minutes and 60 minutes, charge the HGV within an hour and a half. So they're very powerful. So depends on your needs now. If a driver needs to take the vehicle home because he's on standby, will go on his lunch break, plug in a rapid charger. If the vehicle stay there overnight or over a weekend or twice a week, you'll charge it in. So we got a variety of chargers to suit all needs. For personal needs, if you're considering to buy a electric vehicle, I recommend the overnight charger at home.
Yeah.
And a range sufficient to cover your whole week, maybe. So I don't know how many miles you do per week, but most of the cars now, they go around 350 to 400 miles per week. So judge within that how many times you need to charge the vehicle.
So all the charging points we've got so far now, owned by the local authority,
Yep.
Are they a mix then of the?
Is a mix, yes.
Right.
It's a mix to suit all the needs.
So the vehicles that need to be out on the road quite quickly or
Yep.
reliably, for example, you said you got 3.
We got 4 in Unit 20.
Is it 3
ultra rapid.
recyclable?
Yep.
So obviously, if the charging's down there, you need to make sure that's charged and available to get into the vehicle, I don't know, 7 o'clock in the morning without a problem. So you somewhere for those vehicles, you've got a high charging efficiency point. Yeah.
Overnight, they got a 22 kilowatts charge. So in the morning at 7, they will fully be 100% charged.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong and they got to go after 3 o'clock, they got to be used again for another run or emergency, or the charger fail for any reason, they can still use the rapid charger and within an hour they can be back on the road. Yeah. So that's a contingency plan, and also works for standby officers that take the vehicles home as well.
Right.
Because they can charge in the lunch break or just, when they're in office doing office work, whatever needs they done.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, for a fleet like ours, we do need a mixture. We can't just have one type.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Clive Jones. Councillor David Hughes.
Just thinking of the charges we got underneath now. If we go and make them available for the staff, which is the long-term objective, would it be good, for you discussion? Could you, when you're discussing who's going to be using them, could you discuss that them spaces be left for electrical cars only? If you could have a discussion, because at the moment, most of the cars underneath the park are diesel or petrol. So maybe part of the discussion, you could ask the person if they could leave them for electric car users only.
I did thought about that, and I did have a chat with Sean Thomas. At the moment, the number of electric vehicles is not that great. We got 8 chargers that I think is only 1 or 2 electric vehicles in a building. I wouldn't recommend to be electric vehicles only. Reason for that, you don't have to charge your vehicle every day. Most of the vehicles, they get charged, like I say, once a week, once every other week, if you do less mileage. I think an average person does around 30 to 40 miles per day. Now, if you got a vehicle which takes, 400 miles after a full charge, you're not going to need to charge it for 10 days. If you don't drive on weekends, maybe 2 weeks. So if you give somebody a permit with electric vehicle only, for 2 weeks, potentially that charger will just not be used because the driver just parked there. Yeah. So by offering that to everybody, first come, first serve, because one vehicle can charge one day, another one another day, another one day. So you can have, I don't know, 7 to 10 vehicles using the same charger instead of giving just one person that permit. That makes sense?
So what I meant was if it could be left for electric vehicles.
Oh, yes.
Not specific person.
Can be a restricted to diesel, yeah. That can be done. That can be done, a restriction to diesel. Yeah.
Sorry. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor David Hughes. Any other members with questions? Okay, I've just got a couple, if that's okay. Ewan, just quickly, because policy's got to change by 2035, I think you mentioned, where are we in relation to other local authorities? So are we ahead of the curve, or are all local authorities kind of at the same stage?
I would say we're above average. We're not the top, we're not the bottom, we're just above average. I think the average is about 10% for local authorities. You got Newport, who's gone right ahead at 40% at the moment. But then you got places like Cardiff, like Swansea, like Caerphilly, which they hardly get somewhere around 10%. So we're above average.
Thank you, Ewan. And last one, it's been mentioned in the report about the ambition is to produce our own energy. I heard this mentioned quite a long time ago, to be honest, and I think Geraint and I would know about this. I don't know if it's feasible, to be honest. Sustainable energy is a big thing. Hydroelectricity. Now, obviously, we've got a river that runs top to bottom.
Yep.
Is it now, or would it ever be a realistic option to use hydroelectricity from the River Taff? Bearing in mind, I do realise it causes environmental issues as well. You've got to take that into consideration.
You can answer the question as well. Yes, it's not that easy. So ideally, will be either wind or solar, because that would be the most environmental friendly if you don't use agricultural land, and then just connect that straight to a battery. I don't know how feasible it is to build our own, hydro energy, because the cost involved to maintain that, operate that, build it. By the time you produce energy, you'll probably need to work it for about 1,000 years until you get the money back, if that makes, for 140 vehicles. What I think is a realistic plan is to have more solar panels, maybe a windmill somewhere in the area, and use that energy to be stored, like all the energy produced in the day and night to be stored, and then use overnight vehicles directly. That will, just like the buildings are now with the solar panels, like okay. It won't be extreme.
I just thinking that we're a small local authority. We haven't got probably the area to put lots and lots of solar panels in, and I wasn't just thinking about electric vehicles. I was thinking maybe powering, buildings belong to the council and stuff like that. But obviously, a lot of that you'd have to go into deep into. You'd have to look at that more in depth, and it hasn't been done yet.
I believe the energy department already done that on a building.
Oh, right, okay.
So, but like I said, the energy produced is not near enough for all our vehicles, for what we got at the moment. And I know we think that we don't have enough space on the buildings. But if you look at all the buildings in a country, or even in Merthyr, maybe not even 1% they cover with solar panels. So when 100% of them will be, close to 100% to solar panels, will be a lot of energy produced as well, and that's when it's going to be probably cost efficient to put a storage and use it directly.
Okay. All right. I thought it might have been a bit way up there.
No, sorry.
Councillor Bill Smith and then Councillor Gary Thomas. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. There was a planning application about solar panels on the roof on this building. Could somebody tell me what's the delay, or is it going forward, or is...
This panel.
Yeah, but it's going all over it, wouldn't it?
All right.
You know? You wouldn't only answer the question, so...
I'll check it back.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Councillor Bill Smith. Right, on to question, on to comments, Councillor Gary Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points for me. Strategically, when I was on the Regional Transport Authority, which the Councillor Dave Jones is representing the council now, we spoke many meetings about strategically placing chargers on routes. So, as Councillor Jones alluded to, if a refuse vehicle was out on a round that it was running out of power, perhaps you could call into a community centre or a school where a charger would be placed, that perhaps they could spend a break in there then charging that vehicle. Is that something that you've contemplated? Sorry, I'm going to questions now. Sorry, you've got the questions there. But yeah.
Without charging, pretty much.
Thank you. And the other bit I wanted to make my comment was about the hydro. You're right, Councillor Sam, and I've been chasing this for a long time. But not just for the vehicle charging, it was for the town centre. We've got a weir, running a hydroelectric power in there would power the whole of the town centre and the civic buildings. Now, going back to the future again, 100 years ago, hydroelectric station, power station in Pontycavnai powered all the trams in Merthyr, right? So that was 100 years ago. So I think we need to look back at some of the great things that the Victorians gave us and look at it again, because our water never dries up. It's always here. It's constant. The wind doesn't blow. Sometimes, it's very foggy and cloudy and we can't produce that electricity, but our river always flows. And I think we're missing a trick by not tapping into that. And for Councillor Jones as well, I've got a hybrid car at home and plug it in overnight, and you don't even see the charge really. It's so cheap to power a car. Yeah.
I agree with you. Rivers, and I think Europe does it more than UK, which is, I know it comes with an environmental cost, but whatever lives in the water is going to be affected, and around, and they come with expiring date as well. They only can last like 25 years or 30 years or something like that, which everything rusts in the water as well. And I think that's the reason why nobody invests too much into them. But maybe somebody should look more into that. Yeah.
Any other comments? Councillor Clive Jones.
Yes, I think this has been a very interesting question and answer session, and local authorities everywhere are looking to save money. That's got to be the case. And I think at some time in the not too distant future, even for a local authority as small as Merthyr Tydfil, I think we need to take into account there are other public sector employees not a million miles away from where we sit in now, that use a lot of vehicles. For example, the local health board, and there are others. So maybe those that are looking at planning on this aspect can look at that, because we may be too expensive for us to do it on our own, but I'm sure there is a possibility that, for example, although it might not just be public sector, may have to be you know, there's a lot of businesses in Merthyr that may want to take part in that. But I think that's something that should be really, really examined.
In hydro, like energy production, that will be too much for what we need for our vehicles. At the moment, we only got 2 connections.
Yeah,
We use about 2 megawatts power, maybe around, I don't know, 600 to 800 kilowatts per 24 hours when all our fleet's going to be fully electric. Now, like I say, to get the money back from building something like that will take thousands of years. Yeah, if it'll be a big project, like you say, to power the whole town center, then we can pull a cable maybe, and for fleet as well, for our fleet.
Yeah.
That will make sense, but not just for the fleet. That won't be cost effective.
And to further examine the hydro electric power in, it's not only the fast flowing river Taff that we got a few yards away, but we've got at least 4 large reservoirs just up the road from where we are. And I think that's something else that could be looked into in the future. But, you know, it may not be particularly that you'll have to do that in conjunction with other officers in the authority who are dealing with energy and decarbonisation, etc.
Yeah, and we can't dismiss the fact that the national grid, they got targets to be fully renewable by 2050. So even if we don't do nothing with that, we still rely on them to provide green energy, you know, without any investment, if we just get energy from them.
Yeah.
So it's not something we must do. Will be ideal probably to help and do it faster, but yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Clive Jones. Councillor Bill Smith.
Thank you, Chair. You know, can I say I'm very impressed with this report, because when we sat down, was it 18 months ago, first kick-off, as you said, we had nothing there, we were looking how to take it forward. And now we use the grant to get the charges in first, before we had the wagons in. So I'm very impressed. The other part is, as Councillor Jones just mentioned, Prince Charles Hospital. Now, we were going to do a deal with Prince Charles Hospital and the local schools on an old field up here to have solar panels. So that should have been in place for us to have the extra funding to help everything. So do you know anything happening with that? Or I know it's not a new field, but it's a comment I want to make, because they're building another school up there now, and the power will safeguard that, and also save the electric for Prince Charles Hospital on the car parking.
I can come there quickly, Councillor Smith, on that one. I know the plan application for the solar farm is imminent. I think the property team and the consultants involved have just finished the pre-application consultation, right. So the application is due in any time now.
Great. Yeah, but it's the same as that, but I will support you as well.
When I participate with the Infuse project by CCR, and that's still in tomorrow. I got a meeting with them. I know the health board, we're looking at like to cooperate in this, so that we learn from each other, not just, you know, with the 10 local authorities in CCR, but with the health board, Southwest Police as well, fire and all that. If we can do something, you know, to help us all. So if somebody got the land, somebody got the investment, somebody got the technology or like the knowledge to do something like that. But like I said, that's a little bit further away in the future. I don't think that's going to happen in the next.
No, the question is, because the plan is already ready for planning, then it will move over some reason. But all of a sudden, we've got 2 main schools in that area on the lightning from Prince Charles, because, as I said, it's costly. So, you know, I want to keep Prince Charles going there with the power. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Bill Smith. Any other comments from members? No? Okay. Just quickly then, thank you for members for questions. Johan for answering, and Councillor Thomas for history lesson as well, which I've just found on online. So thank you very much. Okay. Agenda item number 4, planning enforcement. The report author is Craig Watkins, being presented here today by the Cabinet Member David Jones. Questions will be answered by Craig as well. I did take the liberty of asking some questions because I just thought it might help with the report, and I believe it has been sent out to members. Hopefully everyone has seen it. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides an overview of the enforcement powers available, how those powers are utilised, and reflect on outcomes achieved. It also highlights the challenges faced and suggests improvements that could enhance the effectiveness and efficiency of the service. Section 4 highlights the positive outcomes of planning enforcement, the types of breaches a planning authority will investigate, and the processes for those investigations. Section 5, the Planning Enforcement Service operates under a framework designed to address any breaches of planning control as listed in 5.1. 2 examples of successful recent enforcements are shown in section 5.3 to 5.6. Section 5.7 highlights the challenges that the enforcement function faces. Section 6 and 7 suggest some improvements that would improve the service and thereby protect and enhance the quality of our local environment. And Section 8 identifies the positive impacts of our own well-being objectives. And have I missed anything, Craig? Is there anything you want to go over? But thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor David Jones. Councillor Paul Dayton, questions?
Thank you, Chair. Further to Councillor Sam's question that he asked via email in regards to section 215 notices, if an empty property is causing issue to adjoining properties, could this be looked at by the planning enforcement team alongside environmental health? And if so, what can you do, especially if the owners are unreachable for any reason?
Yeah, this is something that we do work with environmental health on at the moment. Did you refer directly to empty properties? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, the issue we've got is the section 215 powers are quite specific and fairly limited from the planning point of view. The actual power itself is the power to require proper maintenance of land, and what it would boil down to is whether we take action in relation to section 215 and issue a notice is whether the amenity of that area or an adjoining area is adversely affected by the condition of that land. It is tricky because the amenity is quite a sort of abstract sort of issue. Like I said, there's no sort of set principles that you sort of follow. So there's always going to be a judgment to be made as to the level that if a building's in disrepair or if land has been sort of dumped on or is looking like shabby as to the action we would take. We have used 215s on. I'm trying to think of some of the cases where we have. The General Hospital where we've had sort of rubbish and the site sort of being left to sort of rack and ruin, but there's always that balancing act between looking to serve a section 215 notice or taking formal action. Like I said, if it's a house that's been abandoned for a couple of months and there's a couple of bags of rubbish in the garden, you're probably not at the threshold for using a 215 notice, but depending on whether environmental health can take action or not under their legislation, we might get involved in a more informal way, write to the landowner, write to the property owner and say, well, can you do this within 21 days? Because the other thing as well with the 215 notices is once you get into the process of actually serving a formal enforcement notice, then you have 28 days then to comply with the notice, and then you have the period of time that is specified in the notice to address it, which quite often 28 days as well. So you're looking at 56 days, two months essentially to deal with. Whereas if we can deal with things more informally, we'd usually say, can you please remove the rubbish in 21 days? It can often lead to it being dealt with a little bit quicker. But I said it is always handy to have that 215 power sort of in the back pocket. So if it is needed, we can use it.
Just on that, if that property is connected to another property then, and it's causing issues with their property, as in damp or leaks or whatever, and they're not getting nowhere with that, how do they fare then?
Again, it's going to depend on the scale and nature of what's being done. on that property. I suppose there could be an argument if, but again, you've got to prove then, I suppose, that if like, there's bags of rubbish leaning up against the sort of party wall, is that causing the damp or the issues on the other side? So it can be difficult for you to use the powers in those sort of scenarios. But again,
sorry, button in, not just rubbish. You say tiles are missing.
Tiles.
But
the state of the
yeah,
property is causing.
those sorts of things. Yeah, we can use those powers if we determine that it's over a threshold that we can use those powers.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Paula Leighton. Councillor Clive Jones.
Can we start, first of all, Chair, with our friends, section 215? Well, when I eventually retire from this chamber, I'll write a book about many other things, but the old General Hospital in particular. And when Craig talks about the balancing act, he's quite right, because there are other acts on the statute book that, for example, the environmental health officers can use, and the case that's been highlighted now, my guess is that's more akin to the acts that environmental health officers work with daily, particularly if properties been affected by a property next door. But am I right in saying, Craig, that because you did suggest that section 215, I mean, I haven't read it from end to end, but it is not as robust as it could be. We have used it for, well, Old General Hospital is a very good example where the state of the building, I mean, you know, you could list them from end to end, and this is going back nearly 20 years, when I complained as soon as I became an elected member of Park Ward about then the state of the building, and that was addressed by one of the senior environmental health officers at the time, because they sent a long list to the then owner, which included piles of litter in the grounds, but the whole state of the property. The other section, Chair, that I think probably most members have used is for the state of privately owned land, where, you know, they become dumping grounds all over the county borough. And I think they tried to apply section 215 to it. But in my view, they probably are more robust legislation there in the statute books that our environmental health officers can utilise in that case. So I know it's a long-winded question, but 215 is there, but, and you have alluded to it, do you agree that what's contained in there is not really robust enough to deal with a number of the things that elected members are dealing with?
Yeah, I think section 215 of Town Country Plan Act is actually quite a short section. It isn't sort of lengthy, detailed piece of legislation like you might expect with something. I guess it is quite brief. But at the end of the day, it is a part of the sort of suite of mechanisms, the suite of legislation that we've got to look to enforce against these issues. But yeah, I would agree that it's quite a small part in terms of the whole number of mechanisms that we've got available to us as a council.
But would you agree, because I think people have turned to the planning department over various things because planning has been approved and then nothing happens, the grounds become dilapidated, you know, litter is all over the place, whereas perhaps certain cases they could have been referred immediately to the environmental health officers, because I think there are other acts which they could really apply in those circumstances.
Yes, I wouldn't want to comment on sort of environmental health legislation. I'm not very familiar with it at all. So but yeah, again, I think it just highlights the need for that. Make sure we've got a coordinated approach across all departments to addressing these sorts of issues. Is going to be key moving forward.
Yeah. Chair, can I go back to the in the other things in the report? You mentioned there's 2 part-time enforcement officers. I can remember occasion when we had full-time enforcement officers and more than one, but we currently have 2 part-time. Put together, how many hours is that? Is that equivalent exactly to a full-time officer, or is it less?
It's a little bit less. We now have 4 days a week enforcement officer time. We did have 5 days a week up until last year, where we had 1 officer 3 days a week, 1 officer 2. One of the enforcement officers left the authority. I think looking at the figure, I think the answer I sent down this morning, there seems to have been a bit of a trend of cases dropping over the last 3 to 4 years in terms of enforcement cases. We took that into a balance, and then with looking at the sort of planning application side of thing, we decided to put that extra day onto a planning officer to help a capacity in terms of dealing with applications. So there's no additional cost to the department. Yeah. We just moved the hours around.
So 4 days a week. I don't know, is that, if it works out, is that about 30 hours or 32 hours?
28 to 30 it would be some,
per week. So they're entitled to 6 weeks holidays, each of them. So for 3 months in the year, you're really likely to have 1 part-time enforcement officers working about 20 to 30 hours a week. So, and I've seen the figures that the chair asked for, because look at year 23 compared with the numbers are down for the number of enforcement cases, and the number of cases taken further are down. But is that because there's insufficient time allocated to enforcement matters? And that's another question, but I'll ask you now.
Yeah, like obviously we'd want as much resource as we could possibly get within the team. But I think when we sort of look back through the data, through the figures, and like historically, even before 2020, figures tended to be sort of around the 120, 130 mark on average. There does seem to have been a consistent drop since sort of 2021, 2022. Anecdotally, and this is something we've sort of all noticed as officers across the planning department, is a lot of people, whether it was through grant funding, furlough schemes or other things at the start of COVID, a lot of people carried out improvements to their dwellings in terms of extensions, garden rooms, all those sorts of things. And it's those household types of development tend to make up a large proportion of the enforcement cases. So it appears as if almost the majority of people have exhausted their permitted development rights or spent all the money they had to carry out these improvements. So that, I think, that's a large chunk of why the cases have fallen down over the last 2 years or so.
But there are cases, I'm sure you wouldn't disagree, where development work has taken place where there's no planning permission being applied for. Perhaps, neighbours not a million miles away don't know whether they've had planning permission or not. And I suspect we don't know if there are, 27,500 domestic properties. I don't know how many commercial properties there are, but there's hundreds of them. So if you've got people amongst that lot, and people will, if they think they get away with it, we would know.
Yeah, no, I think it links into one of the other questions that were asked by the chair in terms of do we go out and sort of monitor and sort of physically see what's going on. And so whilst we don't do that formally, the sort of enforcement service is essentially reactive. There's a lot of that sort of monitoring carried out on an informal basis, like the planning officers, the days they're in the office, they're out on site, driving around the borough looking at sites. the enforcement officers out and about when they are putting out site notices, going to visit other sites that they've had complaints about. Building control officers within the same department, or obviously there's a relationship there where if they got a building control application or they find an authorised works, they liaise back with the planners, and similarly then with colleagues in engineers, in environmental health as well. There is that, albeit on an informal basis, there is that sort of coordination going on to pick up as many of these cases as we can.
So before I leave that point, do you think we've got enough enforcement officers?
Yeah, I think the initial indications would indicate that the level of resource we've got at the moment is sufficient. I think you can't exactly see it from the figures. It's a bit this morning, but I think during 2024, when we did reduce from sort of 5 days a week enforcement to 4 days a week, we still, I think the time taken to investigate within the 84 days, which is the Welsh Government indicator, we were over 80% for 2024, which is seen as sort of high performing across Wales.
Can I go to the planning applications? Most of them have planning conditions. You'd see in some cases quite extensive. You might have 12, 15, 20 conditions. That's part of the development. You can do this, but you've got to apply those conditions. Now, how do we monitor that all those conditions have been abided by, for want of a better word? I wouldn't have thought, the planning officers have got that amount of time covering the whole of the county borough to have, I'm going to such address, that's close by, so I'll have a look at if all these planning conditions have been dealt with. So how do we guarantee, for me, Chair, that would be more than likely the duty, part of the duties of the enforcement officers to check, to make sure that those conditions have all been taken into account.
Yeah, I think the way it will work within the department here is that once planning permission is granted, we should then have applications to discharge the conditions that need to be discharged for the development to take place. If there's pre-commencement conditions, we should have an application in before the development physically starts. Those applications would be dealt with by the same planning officer that dealt with the original application, so they'd be picked up via that mechanism. And the other applications, the other conditions, then the officer would be checking as they are determining the applications for discharge of conditions on that development, if there are any remaining that haven't been discharged, and then the officer would encourage the developer to get an application to discharge all conditions. If not, then we could look to take enforcement action. Yeah.
So, Chair, is it the responsibility of the planning officer, case officer who's dealt with that planning application to ensure that all those conditions have been discharged?
Yeah, it's the responsibility of the department as a whole. I think we sort of work as a team to ensure those issues are fulfilled. But yeah, in terms of conditions specifically related to a development, generally it would be the planning officer that dealt with the original application.
I'll give you one example. Could be many. If a developer's had permission to build a property and the roofing level should be so high, and that doesn't happen, and it's built a foot and a half lower than it should be, how do they pick that up?
With a very good eye, I don't imagine another example, but no, I think with cases like that, like I said, we haven't got the resources to sort of carry out compliance visits as a matter of course. So with an example such as that, we needed to be reported to us, or it would have to be something glaringly obvious that it's built probably more than a foot out of accordance with the plans. But in a scenario like that, if we did get a report, or if, again, as officers are out and about, we noticed something that did seem a bit off, the enforcement officer would initially investigate liaise back with the case officer, and then we'd look to determine what the most appropriate way forward would be.
Yeah. But that would have to be quite obvious for somebody to pick it up, I don't know, a
Yeah.
resident complaining or
And I think
planning officer with an eagle eye.
yeah, and like ultimately then what it will boil down to is the process and the number of mechanisms we've got in terms of plan enforcement. And with something like that, would we deem it to be such a minimal breach that it wouldn't be expedient to take any further action, or would we just look them to submit amended plans to sort of regularise it and get everything tied off?
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. How do we inform the public, right, on the enforcement orders we got there? Like it's two, they've been using it as like a building site, but I'm not planning. So how do we keep in touch with the public and on information? Because I know you go one area, people give a lot of uric in one area, but do we inform the public around a certain area that this is still happening? And because when you read it, some of these contractors and interested builders, they just drag their feet and cause problems. So how do we keep the public involved?
Yeah, I don't think there isn't the same requirements to sort of involve the public in the enforcement process as there is with applications. With examples like that are included in the report, I suppose it could be something that we publicise after, like, like sort of public health to it, where they've sort of successfully prosecuted against a retailer for sale of counterfeit goods. We could potentially go down that route and publicise it to make people aware of what we have been able to do, and hopefully then potential offenders aware of the consequences.
Do we work closely with public health on certain issues?
Yeah, like you said, there's no formal mechanism in place, but there is a good relationship between, like I said, planning, environmental health, engineers, building control, to sort of catch as many of these breaches as we can.
The other question I got, like commercial premises. How do we deal with commercial premises, like a club, pub, it's empty for a long time, but you haven't got any trustees involved, so for people to get in touch. So how do we work that one out?
With those examples, there'll be some person specialised on the land registry that has some interest in the building, and they will be the first.
But if they're still alive, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
So if they all passed away, how do we get that way?
That is a good question. I think we have had one or two scenarios like that, but I think it's just a matter then, like I said, if we've got good relationships, sort of a lot of us sort of know.
I would say yes.
Well, perhaps you come up with the right number as well.
I think that's where the enforcement officers learn their crest in terms of
Because the buildings up in Deccan and Paul's area have been empty for years now, and everybody's concerned because of the central point of port in Dowlais. So, like the Corn Club, and nobody's dealing with it, and everybody's complaining about it. So how do people take that forward?
If you can email me on that one, Bill, I'll have a look to see what, if anything's been done previously. If not, then what we can look to do with it.
Okay, great. Could people ask you questions on that song?
Just on that, I'm going to make sure
Councillor Geraint Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. This is a very hot topic, as we all know. Phil was at my surgery on Friday evening, where I was approached by a member of the public, very concerned about a parcel of land that's been bought in our area, and the developer is planning, to develop the site. It has TPOs on it, etc., etc. Has no planning application on it. So it's so important that we have these planning officers, enforcement officers, to inspect. Because if we didn't, Craig, what would happen?
Resource that we've got as to what action we take. I think in the report, it's a bit of a strange position with enforcement, because there's no it's not a statutory function, it's a discretionary function. However, we do have a duty to investigate. It's the action that we then take where we have the discretion as to what we then do. But I think I'm comfortable with the resource we've got now, that we've got the capacity to deal with instances like that. And I think as with all cases where you've got the sort of pressure on departments, it's just a matter of everyone mucking in and doing what we can.
I suppose including ourselves really, like our eyes and ears are important. The feedback to you.
Yeah. So generally the earlier we're made aware of things, the better from our point of view. Yeah.
And going back onto some of the questions my colleagues asked earlier regarding some of these very difficult sites. Reflecting back on Lewis last year, which is mentioned in the report, we brought a plethora of officers to a meeting, planners, environmental health, legal, etc. How easy is it to bring a team of officers together like that to deal with, you know, a real problem case?
I don't think there are any huge issues in terms of bringing everyone together. Obviously, what I think going through cases such as that gives us the sort of experience of we know, right, this is likely to be a particularly contentious one. We need to get a team together sooner rather than later. I think with that one, there were potentially a number of meetings first where we had maybe one department there one week, then another department the week after, another department the week after, and then we all got together. Whereas in the future, I'd hope if we had the foresight to see that this is going to be a particularly difficult site, we'd get that sort of multidisciplinary team together at the first instance, really. And I think that would help a case like that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Geraint-Thomas. Councillor David Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Coming back to the question that Geraint just alluded to there. I was on that committee when we spoke about that actual land down in Lewis. And to be honest with you, going down the last summer, nothing's been done as far as I'm concerned. You know, it's all right having that committee, and we was all on that table talking, and that gentleman is still doing them things. So, you know, we need to have a bit more teeth when we are going after people that are blatantly not doing what they should be doing. I was very disappointed, Craig. So, can you tell me, this question I'm asking, have anything since last September been done for that gentleman? Enforcement?
I'll have to get back. I know an enforcement notice was served on certain issues on that land from a planning perspective. I'll have to check with the enforcement officer, get back to you on the details, see exactly what's happened.
Okay, lovely. And my last question, which is a pet hate of mine. Working from home, do the officers work from home? Enforcement officers work from home?
They're agile workers. They do 2 days a week each, effectively. One officer does Monday, Wednesday, the other does Wednesday, Thursday, and they're both in the office on a Wednesday and a Monday and Thursday as required.
So, as required, or they can work from home?
They can work from home, yes.
Right. They do work from home. Yeah, well, no good answer. That's my question, because, well, I make a comment after, I think. I'm frustrated, you know.
Thank you, Councillor David Hughes. Mr. Philip Starr.
When Craig refers to one of the bullet points in 4.3, I know that there's been a concern fairly recently in parts of Merthyr about the mushrooming of adverts by people, especially people doing driveways, resin driveways or block paveways or whatever. I'd just like to know what the legal position is with regard to those. I can appreciate that where the advert then is placed on or near the work that's being created and finished, I don't think I have a big problem with that. But when those adverts then are placed across the whole of the ward or the whole of the area where the work has been done, what's their legal position with regard to planning?
Right. there's a couple of issues associated with this, with adverts in general. I suppose firstly, as a council, we can't enforce against ourselves. That's one of the issues with Section 215 notices we've had, where people have fly tipped on our land. We can't use any planning powers there because we can't use planning enforcement powers against ourselves. So we can't enforce on our own land. However, with adverts, if they are placed on land that is highways land, we can instruct the highways department to simply remove them. And then where the adverts are on private land and they are over a certain size, which I think is a sort of a 30 centimetre square, effectively, we can then look to take enforcement action if they're on private land.
And that enforcement action would then be against the landowner or against the company that is responsible for?
It would be against the landowner. Yeah.
Against the landowner, because a lot of these are placed in areas where determining who the landowner is would be quite difficult.
That's one of the issues we've had, yeah. But I think sort of as a general piece of advice to people who've had these works carried out, I would say don't allow the companies to put the signs on your property.
So, who owns those signs?
The company initially owns the signs, but again, if they are put on highways land, we can confiscate them. Effectively, we can remove them.
I put this quite gently. If the signs were defaced or removed, would that constitute criminal damage?
I wouldn't be able to answer that.
No, it's a difficult one.
Yeah.
But those signs have mushroomed. You're aware of them yourself, haven't you? And sometimes they can be quite distracting. Sometimes they can, take people's eyes off when they're driving on the roads. If there was a situation whereby they were to be reported, how would they be reported? Would we use the fly tipping mechanism? Do they consider fly tipping in the same way as if something was dumped on land?
Yeah, we've had complaints direct to us as a planning department about these signs. And I said the approach we take is we look at the land that they're on. Is it in our ownership? If it is it highways land? We go to highways. If it's private land, then we can look to take enforcement action from a planning perspective.
So the complaint would actually go to planning.
To planning first, yeah.
As opposed to highways.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Thanks, Craig. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Phil. Just, Craig, on that, you say you can confiscate but not prosecute?
No, yes, sorry, because we can't actually take enforcement action against the landowner. In that case would be ourselves. We can't enforce against ourselves as the landowner. However, we can remove the signs, effectively confiscate them.
Now, I'm sure on the council website somewhere you can report fly posting and you can be done for fly posting. What's the difference?
If it's done on private land.
So come the elections, just say, for example, now 2026, 2027 for both sets, if the candidate was to put up a sign promoting themselves for the election and it's on council land, you take it down, but you won't prosecute.
If it's on council land that is designated as highways land, we can get them to take it down. If it's on council land that isn't highways, then yeah, I'm not quite sure as to what. But I'm not 100% sure, but I do believe there are exemptions for sort of election material.
Right. Okay.
Somewhere.
Okay. And just on what Phil was saying, I think we've all seen those signs on the bus stops and everything. Okay. Any other questions from members? No. Any comments from members? Councillor Geraint Thomas?
Yeah, just briefly, Chair, regarding enforcement. We know there are some difficult individuals around the borough who act illegally. And we get, numerous complaints from members of the public. I'm sure Councillor Jones knows about what I'm referring to now, which is, on the border of Vena and the Cyfarthfa ward. Right? Now, enforcement officers are put themselves at a little bit of a risk with some individuals, aren't they? So I hope that the council can protect them in the best ways they can as they go about their work. I hope there's support from the police when they do it as well, because some of these people that they're dealing with can be very dangerous.
Thank you, Councillor Gary and Thomas. Councillor Clive Jones.
Yes, Chair. Looking at the cases and obviously being involved in reporting some of them, some of these cases, Chair, have to be devoted a lot of time in one particular case. Some of them can be complex, and as Councillor Thomas has just mentioned, you can be dealing with some very individual awkward characters. So my concern, frankly, is having had the answers to the questions about the amount of hours the two part-time are working, bearing in mind you're working at home, you're in the office, only a limited amount of time. They have to go out as well. Whenever they've had a referral to look at enforcement, you have to go out and examine. You just can't look at a Google map and say, well, I see what they mean. You've got to go out to physically have a look at it and be convinced that there's an enforcement action that's needed. So I am not totally convinced that with the average hours that we've got of 28 to 30 hours with two part-time enforcement officers, that we've really got the capacity to be able to deal with these matters, because enforcement in planning terms is really, really vital. And I note that the case I quoted, the number of cases, certainly the one figures we got the year before last for 23 have come down. Number of cases taken to court have come down. I don't believe for 1 second, Chair, that the overall number of enforcement issues out there have generally come down.
Thank you, Councillor Clive Jones. Any other comments from members? Okay, nobody's indicating. I forgot to ask a question and I'm out of questions, so I'm not asking it, obviously. I'll have to email it. Just thank you very much for answering questions and for the report. And thank you for members for their questions as well. And you guys can go, or you can stay if you like. Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 5 is the Forward Work Programme 2024-2025. I think members will be aware that one of those items has been taken off, and it was the waste recovery targets and enforcement. I believe we're still waiting on RAP to come back with a report which will help. Their report will help with the report being written for this for that agenda item. I'll come on to you guys in a second, unless specifically in. Yes, go on. Yeah, go on, Clive.
Can you remind me, because I made a note to ask this point, what is the issue in connection with RAP, which, in my opinion, waste recovery targets is perhaps holding up that report, and what's the reason for the delay? How long will the delay be?
I believe it's not going to be too long. I believe it's pretty imminent, but because I think the council have got to go to 70%, hit a target of 70%, I believe that Paul Davis and that department and all those guys and Judith are working with RAP to come up with ideas to increase those recovery rates to 70%. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Well, haven't we got to reach the 70% target by the end of the next financial year?
I believe so.
So the sooner those discussions take place and the sooner this comes to us, the better.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, Chair, I referred to in council, I'm baffled, completely and totally baffled, why 3,000 tons of food waste are sent for incineration when we've got nearly 14,000 domestic users who are given the two-fingered sign to put in food waste, and I still put in food waste in wheelie bins.
To be honest, Clive, I don't think it's just the recycling. The food, I think all you have to do is walk around the borough at the moment. You know, the amount of rubbish that is recycling, and that obviously that's for fly tipping and that sort of thing. But yeah, that would definitely impact our recovery, recycling recovery.
Well, what I'm saying is, you know, we don't seem to know exactly when this will come to our committee. Is it going to come to our committee in April? Or will it be weeks after that? Is it going to be by June? By the time we come to discussing this,
it'll be next cycle.
Well, it could be a bit
after
late.
The date we have to reach 70%.
We come up and say, well, why aren't you looking at that? You should be looking at that because you might make a quicker win than looking at something else.
Yeah. Neil, can you send an email and ask if that is due?
Yeah, no problem. We'll follow up.
Yeah.
Could we all be copied into that, Chair?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bill Smith.
Thank you, Chair. On the work programme, I don't know if Neil can support what I'm trying to say, but last year we did have a discussion with the former chairman on a meeting with active travel, because I brought up an issue between and Ruddycar, because sometimes it takes only half hour to get down towards the petrol station, Ruddycar and all that, because of the two traffic lights on the bottom for people across the road. That's a major issue, and people complaining left and centre. And also a meeting with the roundabout and the retail park, because why can't we get some yellow boxes up there? Because the people are just blocking the roundabout, and it takes half hour for people to get from past retail park and Trago when they live in top end of Swansea Road. So can we ask them for a meeting with them? Neil, if I remember right, I was on the work programme last year. Can't remember?
Yes, I can remember something.
We discussed it, and we was hoping that they would give us a date.
I'll have to check the history of the conversations. But if I remember correctly, it was something along the lines of part of it was with regeneration and the maintenance part was with neighbourhood, right, or something along those lines. I'll have to double check the history, Bill, and make inquiries and get back.
Can we have a look at it? Because if it's regeneration is very common, but at the end of the day, it's a big issue for the town centre. The town centre is blocked up with traffic all over the place. So how can we have a chat with them to improve moving some of this traffic?
Okay. I know Regen are meeting tomorrow, so would it be possible to maybe copy Councillor Lee Davis into that?
Yeah.
And maybe there's something he could look at as well, and then instead of duplicating the reports, maybe it would be one report with aspects of both committees in it.
Chair, I'm on that committee tomorrow, so I'll bring it up as well.
Great.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the full story at my age now, right? That's how bad I get it, right? So I'll bring it up tomorrow, but I thought I'd bring it up here as well. And possibly a joint meeting, Chair.
Yeah.
Because then we need it, something.
Yeah, lovely. No problem.
Thank you.
Councillor Gawain Thomas.
Chair, only to help Councillor Smith really, maybe a report is needed just on traffic flow around Merthyr Tydfil, which would be a neighbourhood services report then, and with, you know, I know active travel do some of the crossings involved, but it'd be more directed at the neighbourhood services.
back to that in a second, Geraint. Because that we've got nothing planned in for April, so maybe that could be something that we're looking at.
And Chair, as well, that's almost coming up to the time when the Heads of the Valley Road will become operational.
Yeah.
And then we know that the flow of traffic will be different than what it is now as well.
Yeah. Lovely. So do you think it'd be better have the report before it opens?
I think so. So we know what's in their minds as well.
Okay.
The officers' minds of where they think the traffic's going to flow.
Yeah. Okay. Happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll give you a second to write it. Okay. It'd be Philip Starr next.
Connected with
April.
Councillor Smith's point, obviously we did traffic management in the last meeting, didn't we? But that was mostly to do with the pressure that's going to come on around the new schools and the new schools that are being built in Pendarren and on Agurnis, which we partially shelved because we weren't aware of how the new road, the A465, would impact on that. But to come back to your point, Bill, I think it was about 18 months ago that we did discuss through active travel, and Bill's point about the pedestrian crossing down at the fountain shop and the impact that that's had on travel. That was something which we brought up and which we discussed, and we've heard nothing back from that since. I think was that the point you were trying to make? The point yeah, I think it was in the last the last cycle.
It was agreed for them to come here.
It was, yeah.
It's the regeneration.
Could that be looked at as an action, Neil, to get an update on that? If Phil's saying that 18 months ago you asked for it and you've heard nothing back.
Yeah, I'll note that as an action, no problem.
Okay.
Wanted to discuss it further.
We asked for a meeting, we did.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
At the time, then it was close on 45 minutes to get from here down to roundabouts.
Maybe that could be all
traffic.
included in the report that Geraint has asked for in April. And I think April's probably a good time before that road opens, and it gives the guys in that department enough time to put everything together, because we don't have actually there's nothing actually in the forward work program for them.
Well, if we've got space in our work program in April, let's take it forward. Right? But also, can we have in the meantime a report from the officers where we go in? Because I had an email this week stating that the highway department will discuss with all councillors on the traffic problem we brought up at the schools. Well, I don't know why you want to come to the ward members. You should come to this committee so everybody should know, because it don't only affect the Gurnas, it'll affect Councillor Jones's area.
I think that all comes under the one traffic flow around Merthyr Tydfil, as Geraint said.
This is the school run.
Yeah, but the whole thing maybe could be...
I agree, but is it too much in one day? Because
I don't think so.
We have a big debate on that.
Yeah, because to be honest, I think we're only probably going to have one item on that day. And I think the same will be in March. It'll just be one item.
Yeah, no problem. It's going on with it then.
Yeah.
We'll deal with it.
Okay. Councillor Clive Jones?
Yeah. So in March, am I right in
we've got
saying that, is it street scene?
Yeah. Now I've got something on that, and what it's asking for is, bear with me, sorry. Right. Scrutiny to explore the current activities and programs involved around street scene maintenance, with particular focus on existing weed treatment and management. Now, I do think it needs to be expanded upon, to be honest, because there's going to be nothing else on that day. And I had a quick look. Mark Panniers is over that street scene, and some of the things that fall under his portfolio are biodiversity, grounds maintenance, parks, playgrounds, and street cleansing. So if anyone has any, I think, ideas on how to expand on that as well.
Was this triggered off because the weed spraying, I don't know whether it's because of the weather, had been delayed, and I don't know, well, not in my ward, but elsewhere, for example, the weeds and the grass were more prevalent, and I'd seen it in previous years. Is that what's triggered off this particular item?
Yeah,
Or,
what happened, they said that they had done certain areas and they hadn't done it. Because remember you said Morgantown was a
yes,
very
yes,
bad area.
yes,
And
yes.
I asked Mark and he said, well, he spoke to the contractors and the contractor said they'd been around. Well, I know for certain that in the town area, Alma Street,
Yeah.
well, it looks like a field.
Yeah, that's right.
A field.
Yeah.
And so they do some areas, but I don't honestly believe that they do in
Yeah.
all the areas. And that was the reason we asked
Yes.
Mark to
Yeah.
come back to us.
Yeah, I mean, I'd walked around Morgantown when I was a part of it. Well, there was more grass on the pavement in a few streets than I'd ever seen, and similarly, part of the core area. So how they did it, I don't really know. But I think that's what triggered off that particular item, Chair.
Yeah. I think it's been an issue brought up by
Yes,
elected
in
members
the
for a
past,
few years
yeah.
it has. But I'm thinking, sorry, Clive, it's just maybe we can expand on it.
Yeah, yeah.
On especially on maybe street cleansing in general and Councillor Geraint Thomas?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
I wanted to ask, Geraint, when you say the aspect of Bill and fair play, Bill's been banging the drum about this Avenue de Clichy and the tailback there for quite some time, and it is a problem. Geraint, you're saying that once the A465 is completely open, I just wanted somebody to explain to me how the traffic is going to be completely down there, Clichy Lagren, when the A465 is.
I'm not saying it's going to affect that, but it could be worse than that. That's what we've got to work out.
Oh, right.
But
I thought you meant it's going to be improved.
No, but when
we said about the school.
yeah. But when the road is open, you'll have the new turn-off at the Gurnes at the Prince Charles Hospital.
Yes.
Where a lot of people will take that road to get to Kevin and those areas when they won't be coming down the Swansea Road so much, right, at the moment, church. Depends in which direction you're coming from.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the modelling of it, I would, just to see how it's going to look, because it could change the flow of a lot of things.
Trouble with that is that's the only way to get to Kevin.
It is.
Yeah. You can't get to Kevin.
Currently, yeah.
No.
And you're going to have to go through past the moment church to get to Kevin.
Or off that turning off the Gurnes turn-off.
And talking about that, signage to direct people when is vitally important. You know, I mean, I brought up, and I are looking at it, that, for example, staff in Prince Charles coming out when they're finishing, instead of, and you, in my opinion, it's another area that they can connect up. But from about 3:30 every afternoon, from the Pandy Clock down to the Camartha Bridge, and most of those people are turning right by the Mormon Church to access the either the A470 or the A465. But if they come down by the junction of Brecon Road and the end of Camartha Park, there's another area that if the sign there, they could see, and I'm sure some of them would take the option of going up to Kevin, turning back on the road, so they'd get onto, for example, if they go into Aberdare, in my opinion, they'd get on that road much quicker when the road is finished, and they do it at the moment.
When they come straight to the hospital down under that junction.
Yeah. So the signage all around there is vitally important.
Chair, the bit I want to ask was maybe something we can ask Mark Panias, because I've been asked by members of the public about the room for future burials in our cemeteries. A lot of people are concerned at the moment that there's no room, and in a short matter of time, there'll be no room for burials. That may be something we could confirm with Mark. I know we were looking at buying extra land at Pant and in Kevin, but what's the plans to develop it?
Would you want that that would have to be a separate report, wouldn't it? Because I know Mark Panniers is over what we're going to discuss in March anyway.
I
But I think probably a different report because it's kind of
and
totally.
sorry, Chair, you need to give us the figures there as to whether the number of burials have decreased over the years, or what the figures are, because the amount of extra roads would be required in cemeteries depends on the average number of burials.
Cremations.
Yeah.
If we were to keep Mark Panier's, if we were to keep him busy because he's doing that report for March anyway, does it give enough time to bring, if you're going to do the big one, the traffic for April, and bring about cemeteries and that sort of thing for March? Do you think that gives him enough time? Something you could ask?
Yeah, and that's Judith.
Yeah,
Judith
okay.
And Mark tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor David Hughes first.
Evad is on first. I mean.
Been on 3 days, haven't it? You've all been robbing on for weeks, but they've been here. Now we know this. Give me a red card. Down by the red car roundabout, that's all I want. It's to have one button on the two pedal crossing. Because when you go down there now, the first one's on red, go 4 yards, and the next one's on red. So the traffic is blocking up.
I'm quite sure that could be incorporated into that report.
That's all. It was a bit of common sense.
If you could ask maybe Carwyn Morris.
Very common sense, because they cut the time because people are not coming to town. They're coming down toiling.
If we could pencil that one in for April, if you can ask Carwyn and whoever else needs to be asked.
Put that in the scrutiny, 16th of May 2023.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Phil. Councillor David Hughes.
We get Phil to take minutes next time. What they're going to say is that the cemeteries, we bought the land and we've done the work up in the Kevin. The work is there ready for the new graves. However, the cemetery department are looking to use all old graves before they start using new graves. So that's what I'm told by the gentleman who's the sexton up there, is that they are not looking at opening new graves. They're looking at utility graves.
I think it'd be quite an interest. Obviously, something every single family in Merthyr would be interested in as a report. So all that information would be good. Thank you, David.
No,
you can't.
Yes, I can.
Councillor Pauline.
Why not?
It's gone off now. No, it's probably about the same thing about the cemeteries, and David was saying, and I think they look into the utility graves to reuse them rather than more ground. Because I'm sure going forward, and I don't know where I read this, is that they looking to stop burials as such because of environment again and that type of thing, and more so down the path of cremation.
But the land that we developed, we paid the first 100,000 to put the pits in, so they already ready to go.
Bill, have a speaking mind.
No, don't speak.
Land is bought and it's all developed.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine, you're fine.
15 years ago, we had a public meeting up in Pont Area.
You do what, sorry?
We had a public meeting up in Pont Area over the extension of Pont Cemetery.
Into the Brinner, is it?
On the old Brinner, with the old railway lines are, they say, we were going to extend Pont Cemetery over there. They done all the way in because there's two types of drainage you're going to do in. Bits and pieces, but the money just dried up. So I don't know what happened, but they was talking there.
I'm sure that would all come out in the report. Yeah.
We built it, we buried it in Kevin first. All right, then, like, you will spot it.
I don't want to spot it, man. I don't want to spot anyway. I'm not going, yeah?
He's going in the creme when he goes.
I'm going to tree now.
Okay. Right. I think we go to agenda item 6. Scrutiny referrals. I have none. Okay. Agenda item number 7, report recommendations. Right. Agenda item number 3, fleet update and planning report. The purpose of that report was that the content of the report be discussed and noted, and I think it was. Agenda item number 4, planning enforcement. Purpose of the report was that the conclusions of the report are noted and any issues debated. Listen, I'm just wondering, in regards to the extra information that we were given by Craig, is there any way that can be put back on the council website? In order, so if people are looking at the report, then they can see the number of enforcement investigations that have taken place, and then the number of enforcements, because it has been brought up about minutes, and obviously we've seen the figures, but nobody else will be able to see the figures, and it has been mentioned on video either. So I just wondered if that's something that could be done. Yeah. Right.
Do it in the context that there are less complaints coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that people are possibly adhering more to planning regulations.
Because it wasn't broken down. They was
No,
just given
no.
figures.
Once you give people start to read between the lines, then don't they?
I'm not convinced, and I said it, that the number of possible enforcement actions out there are going down. The trend, except for I think the year 24, is definitely went up a bit. But I'm not convinced that matters have suddenly changed overnight, and there is no, enforcement. I mean, what we are getting here, let's be honest, there are a number of those numbers have been referred in one way or another by the 30 elected members. Because somebody has said something to them, and they said, right, we ask about that, it's been pursued. But I'm not convinced at all.
No, I think Craig did mention that they do rely on people reporting things.
It's a bit ridiculous in this day and age that we've got part-time enforcement officers, and it's been agreed that one day a week there's nobody there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you can't contact anyone.
You did admit they were reactive when they didn't go out and look for things.
It's a
reactive
service now, not a proactive service.
No.
Chair, when you talk about the minutes, can we put the time factor, how long do it take people for contract or development to be take to court? Because people don't know enforcements against that. Is that right? I mean, people fall in 1st of April, nothing been done till end of August. Is a time factor?
Yeah. Maybe, Neil, in all this work you've got to do.
he works from home.
He's asked Craig if it's possible for an approximate timeline on how long an investigation takes, if that's possible, and ask. And then maybe we could look at asking if that information could be put on the council website afterwards.
Yeah, the important word there is the average time for enforcement action.
That's what we want.
Yeah, we don't report in depth. Okay. I think we've looked at we've looked at the recommendations on what we were supposed to do. Agenda item number 8. Bear with me now. Agenda item number 8 is a feedback on scrutiny items. Just got to find this. Okay. We're looking back on the local development plan. Is that the one? Yeah. Right. The scrutiny focus was what we're trying to achieve, and it was gain a greater understanding of the LDP. Improve understanding of the legislative background and previous iterations of the LDP, greater understanding of the LDP review and the next steps in, understand how members can help in matters such as communication and improving public participation, and allow members to feed into all aspects. I didn't sit on it, to be honest, and I don't think every member was actually on the committee at that time, so I don't really know anything about it, to be honest. Yeah.
They told us then what schools in the borough. What schools then I investigate and shared with you on the chat.
I think, to be honest, and I think it probably may need to come back again or to all members, because I remember just after we first got in, I didn't know anything about it, you know, the local development plan, and then an application obviously came in for something which ended up costing the council money, and maybe if we'd have known beforehand, well, we could have done something. Yeah. Yeah. Councillor Geraint Thomas?
What I was going to say is that I think it does need another review, the LDP, because things have changed so fast over the last few years, especially with the storms we're having and the weather. Like, we all have got, you know, lands allocated for, you know, building sites in our wards. And looking at things now, we know that the water table and the pipes are there just can't take the water. And I think it all needs to be reviewed, you know, especially that. Yeah. It's about 15 years, but it's reviewed along the lines, and I think it's due for review now.
Every 5 years. Right.
Yeah. Started the review.
But it's to be honest, it was really good because the knowledge you had, what schools are going, what buildings come in then, what planning you've done.
What land is...
north to south, east to west.
Yeah.
You had everything, yeah.
Because those Douglas Heartlands came up a lot, didn't they?
Okay.
It was good meeting.
Following the last scrutiny as well, where it was the memorial bench and tree policy, where that was discussed, the recommendation was made by, I think Geraint mentioned it, having a policy for all playgrounds and that sort of thing. But I don't think we've heard anything.
We haven't had an update.
No.
Yeah, no, I'll continue to follow that up.
That may be because of the Christmas period as well.
Could well be, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're going to follow that up, okay? In regards to the task and finish, the flight tip and task and finish group, we had a meeting with officers. It was quite interesting. We've had the report back today. I've got to go through it because they have redacted it, but it's quite hard to tell where it's been redacted, and I've got to take other stuff out as well because one of the cases is actually going to court now as well. So we're hoping that could be available to members publicly for March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the meeting where was Sarah King?
Yeah.
I was just going to ask that.
What they've done is Sarah King has had a meeting with officers that are going to sit on this committee, and I believe they're working through. Neil would be able to tell you more because I think you sat in on it. Yeah, you could do it if you like.
Yeah, I know Sarah wants to lead on the update to members and the cabinet member, etc. But yeah, they've set up a working group with representatives from Neighbourhood Services, Legal. I can't remember the other one now. Public Protection, sorry. Yeah, they had their first meeting last week. Yeah, probably not appropriate for me to obviously go into the detail of the meeting. That'll be up to Sarah King and Judith Jones. But yeah, it's personal opinion, very productive start. But as I say, they've only had the first one. There's going to be fortnightly meetings between now and the end of March. And as I say, monthly updates is going to be given to yourself and the cabinet members then. Yeah,
and I think there's other councillors that have asked to be seated on this.
Yeah,
as well,
and they, following the first initial meetings, the intention is to expand it to members and other external partners, etc. Then.
Okay.
The idea was to get the housing associations involved with this, see how they can save us costing and work.
Yeah, the intention is to speak to external partners as well, such as
Right.
North Valleys Homes, Housing Association, Keep Wales Tidy, for example, yeah. So it's going to be a lot of external partners involved
Good.
as well.
Okay, I don't have anything else. Just thank you for the action logs, Neil. And I did ask if they were sent out. I hadn't realised that they were. So everyone is kept up to date on the actions and that. And obviously, Phil has gone back and been able to find something that somebody hasn't fed back into the scrutiny 18 months ago.
Yeah, you just.
He's taken over your mantle, Clive. Okay. Okay, I don't have anything to add to that. Agenda item number 9, any other business deemed urgent by the chair? I have none. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, folks.